If you're anything like me, you kinda grew up in a video store. And if you did, then maybe you also remember what it was like to agonize between renting a horror movie or a fitness tape. Just wishing you could somehow satisfy your craving for slashers and your need to break a sweat. It was the classic dilemma, creep show or cardio? Well, Death Spa had us covered, because in 1989, someone somewhere realized that is not a choice anyone should have to make. It's the genre blending of two different sides of the video store we never knew we needed. Basically, it's a Cliff Bar, a balance of health food and junk food. Only this movie smoothie takes a little bit of blood, a little bit of sweat, adds a few shots from up and down the horror section, and shakes it all up into a spandex sludge of pure neon nightmare.
Straight to video.
Alright, before we get started, one thing we knew by 1989, if a horror movie is an engine, then it's lightning that's the spark that gets it turning. And check out that title sequence. I wish more movies would announce themselves in this way, when the title itself is a gag that winks at you with a little wordplay. Shame there weren't enough letters to make the film's European and Asian title, which is, and I'm not joking, Witch Bitch. Anyway, something I realized at the start of this film, horror movies and fitness videos do share one thing in common. They both start with someone running around. High intensity interval terror. Though in horror movies they end up dead, whereas Laura here ends up in a steam room and does pretty much what I do anytime someone hits the steam button. Nah, those ain't chemical burns. That's just a deep respiratory cleanse. Only someone hit the chlorine vapor button, as club owner and boyfriend Michael learns has left Laura with all the telltale signs of chemical exposure. A very convenient plot device. Now, Death Spa was filmed during that oversaturation of gyms in the late 80s, when it seemed like there was a studio on every corner, and boy did they nail down that aesthetic. Everything from the neon color palette to the carpeted weight room, even down to the ominous, all-powerful computer that for some reason runs the place. I'm just happy when mine has matching dumbbells.
What do you say we increase the resistance?
Yeah, this thing is like Skynet for the squat rack. But that's nothing compared to the smoothie bar. That was another one of those 80s fitness trends. This idea that all your needs could be addressed by a blended swirl of radioactive colors. Keep that in mind, because later on, this movie takes the smoothie to a whole new level. Anyway, what's a cold, imposing computer system without a creepy systems admin? Meet David. Yeah, that David. The computer's keeper and also Michael's former brother-in-law, Michael's deceased wife being Catherine, David's twin sister. Yeah, I know, quite a few layers for a movie with a cover like this, right? But hang on, there's still a few more people you gotta meet. Cause anytime anyone gets nearly dissolved in a gym, someone has to come by and ask a few questions. So, meet Lieutenant Stone and Sergeant Fletcher, who swing by Starbody to ask Michael a few questions, accompanied by Tom, Michael's lawyer, and Priscilla, the gym's assistant manager, who together are secretly conspiring to sabotage the gym and take it over. Suspicion immediately falls on David because this was back when only bad guys knew how computers worked, but also due to his resentment toward Michael following Catherine's death. And I promise we're almost done here. Who self-immolated following the loss of her baby during a traumatic childbirth that left her paralyzed, and who Michael has been having disturbing nightmares and visions about. Alright, let's hit the gym and work off some of that plot, huh? Shit! Me, I like to warm up with a nice, uncontrolled freefall. Nah, that diving board didn't break. That's just high-impact plyometrics. The weight room has its own problems. See, this is why you don't train to failure. Even the locker rooms take a beating when a bunch of women are scalded in the shower, though this movie is asking a lot for its audience to accept. Because, really, when has anyone ever complained about a gym shower being too hot? Even less realistic is how Michael handles Linda's complaint.
But to tell you the truth, Michael, this place could use better maintenance.
I'm sorry about the showers. I want to extend your memberships for 3 months, no charge.
Yeah, that never happens. Fortunately, the UK version has a more accurate depiction.
I'm sorry about the showers.
Your membership went up. No more free towels. With his gym plagued with inexplicable accidents and his dreams disturbed by haunting visions. Nah, those ain't ghostly visitations. That's just a trauma-related projection of unresolved grief. No, really, that could actually explain it. Michael, convinced that Catherine is exerting a sinister influence from beyond the grave, takes his troubles to a parapsychologist. And I miss this type of character. The eccentric oddball crackpot who turns out to be legit, and they all seem to look like this. The face? That's the psychologist. The hair? That's the para. Michael believes that Catherine is motivated by a burning jealousy that developed following her accident, a jealousy that he believes is
Without justification.
Michael suspects that Catherine's negative influence is directly tied to David's personal hatred of him, and Dr. Morey offers to come by the club later and sleuth around. Turns out Michael wasn't too far off the mark. When David comes by to fix Michael's computer, you know, back when you fix software with a screwdriver. Only it's not really David, it's Catherine who has taken possession of David's body. So now we have a ghostly possession alongside a ghostly influence with a ghostly computer, and yeah, you can see the story starting to get a little stuffed. Now, for a guy who just asked his girlfriend to move in with him and who believes his former wife's jealousy was
Without justification.
Michael sure does seem to love the ladies, right? Particularly Linda, who Catherine, through David, lures into the basement for a little personalized coaching. Though Linda should have known it wasn't Michael, because really, what kind of grown man leaves messages like this? And also, what kind of a gym has a basement like this? Look, I know that basements aren't aesthetically pleasing places, but why does it look like something out of Freddy's nightmares? Catherine eliminates her latest love rival with her preferred weapon of choice. More scalding, steamy things. Later that night, Dr. Morey comes by and comes upon what's left of Linda. Now, to be fair, Dr. Morey is a parapsychologist, not a paramedic, so he leaves this one to the professionals. Unfortunately, he's not a para-policeman either, as Catherine is just way out of his league. Only, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, it's David who has fully morphed into Catherine's likeness? But here's the thing about this gym, even the ghosts are jacked. Check out Catherine's 1-rep max. See, this is what people think all those expensive supplements will give them. They think they're getting this when they're still just getting this. Anyway, Dr. Morey finally holds something that isn't a gas station toy, though he won't be holding very much of anything again. Yeah, Catherine just kind of has Mortal Kombat levels of abilities now. That's one of those moves that looks cool once you get it off, but just takes too much time. Between his shady lawyer and the killer computer, Michael has had enough, and he just... come on, man. See, this is why I don't do yoga classes. What was I saying? Oh, right. His gym eats people. So, Michael steps in and takes charge, disables the computer, all of which climaxes with the club's big Mardi Gras mixer. Yeah, hard to imagine, but there was a time when fitness clubs really were clubs where they wanted you to socialize. Now I get most of my cardio just avoiding people. Unfortunately, Catherine wasn't about to miss this party, only it's David who has completely assumed Catherine's appearance, pretending to be Jeffrey here, who is dressed as a pirate. Now that is a weighted vest. But look who else shows up. Sergeant Stone and Lieutenant Fletcher, and Fletcher makes the mistake of taking the barista up on that protein shot. Yeah, the 80s were all about appliances, but that's nothing compared to his absolute clown show of a death scene. It's true, we are just so reliant on supplements now. And here we see the danger of eating too much fish and why it's a good idea to limit it to only 2 or 3 times. Exactly, too much mercury. What a circus. Catherine's plans for the rest of the gym? That's a bit simpler.
I will destroy this place, and I'll kill them all.
Though she has some very clear plans for Laura, which is truly one of the most sinister and sadistic plots I have ever seen in any horror movie, exposing Laura to elevated levels of UV light, which, over the course of multiple extended sessions, will increase the likelihood of skin damage and premature aging, along with increasing her statistical likelihood of developing conditions like melanoma. Oh wait, hang on.
Careful. One flick of a button, and she's fried chicken.
Never mind, she's just gonna burn her. Now you'd be forgiven for thinking this is just evening CrossFit, but no, Catherine makes good on her threats to destroy the gym. And Michael, as a man who has enough liability lawsuits on his hands, takes decisive action.
All right, bitch. I'll show you fried chicken.
Now, it's one thing to start a movie with electricity, but come on, it is a lazy way to end one. Yeah, it does the job, but that's the thing. It's just a job. Now, some movies like to wrap things up nice and neat. Others like to leave room open for a sequel. This one? Well, this one just wants to explode some eyeballs. Okay. Alright, what'd I tell you at the beginning? I promised you terror and tights, right? And you can't say this movie didn't deliver. This is as death spa as it gets. But despite what you may be thinking, I'm not bashing this film. Because Death Spa isn't a movie that's bad, rather one that's just a few reps shy of being good. Let's make one thing clear right away. This movie is professional on every level. It is reasonably well written, directed, acted, and well budgeted too. All in all, I would say this one sits somewhere between the video store and the movie theater. And it did have a very limited release. So while it doesn't come up short in any of those areas, it just has too much going on. It's really more of a sci-fi horror, and that's fine, but just draws on too many different but familiar themes. You've got the ghost of Catherine, the ultra-powerful computer, through which she picks people off one by one, the twin brother who the ghost possesses and literally changes shape, who also winds up being ultra-strong, and yeah, this story is a little bit of everything, but just not very much of anything, and that makes it difficult to lock in and track on. And I don't mean to plot shame, but it's a good thing this movie is set in a gym because it could stand to lose a few pounds. The involvement of Stone and Fletcher just kind of fizzles out and turns into a running joke about how out of shape Lieutenant Fletcher is. The sabotage subplot between the assistant manager and the lawyer kind of goes nowhere and doesn't really affect anything. This guy Freddy gets thrown in for comedic relief, but often enough for us to notice, just not often enough for us to care. Though among all this, we at least got this great line.
Size on beta, your VHS.
One that's aged about as well as DVD. But you know what else we got? A pretty accomplished cast. It's a whole who's who of Hey Who's That. Check it out. We've got Ken Foray from Dawn of the Dead, Emmy Award-winning Rosalind Cash from The Omega Man and General Hospital, Chelsea Field from Masters of the Universe, Vanessa Bell Calloway, who you might recognize from her unforgettable role as Princess Imani Easy in Coming to America, Karen Parsons from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I want to give a shout out to Joseph Witt, who plays Dr. Leto Moray, who... anybody recognize him? Sheriff Burke in the very first Scream movie, who Wes Craven cast again after he played Sergeant Parker in the very first Nightmare on Elm Street. That's pretty cool, huh? Anyway, the spotlight in this movie really belongs to Merritt Buttrick, who you no doubt recognize as Captain Kirk's son, David Marcus, in Star Trek II and III, as David, which sadly was to be his last theatrical performance before his untimely passing in 1989. And he just steals the show, playing the role with a sinister and menacing intensity that we don't get to see enough of until halfway through the film, where we really don't get to see much of him at all, as he literally disappears into the role of his twin sister Catherine. And that's really a shame, because I would have happily trimmed the flab from this film if it meant we could see more of David do his thing. Rest in peace, Merritt Buttrick. But you know what? Even if we've already seen all these things before, we've never seen them inside of a gym. And that's what makes Death Spa its own proprietary blend, because sometimes a paranormal doppelganger techno horror sci-fi slasher smoothie is exactly the one you need. Anyway, that's all I have for tonight. Until next time, remember, making movies is hard. Talking shit is easy. See you all soon.